Military History Museum of Moldova. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Chisinau, Moldova. We're back out here today in Chisinau on a bit of a cloudy day, but that's okay because the thing we're going to see today is outside. Because the thing we're going to see today is actually inside. And that is right in front of us here, about a block down, the Military History Museum, Military History Museum of Moldova. So, come along. Thanks for clicking on the video. If you want to help out the channel and help it grow, I really would appreciate it. Click on the like button down there, the subscribe button, and the little bell next to it to be notified for when new videos drop. It really helps the channel grow because it's going to help the YouTube algorithm recognize this content and spread it to other YouTube viewers. If you'd like to support the channel monetarily, I would appreciate that as well. You can leave a super thanks by clicking this thanks button here and give a small donation to the channel. I appreciate your support. So back to the video, enjoy. So this museum is actually pretty close to where we've been staying, like the apartment where we've been staying. And I spotted it on the map when actually I was doing like the research on where I wanted to stay when I visited here in Moldova. So this is like months ago. And saw this thing on the map and it looked pretty cool. I honestly want to check it out. The thing that really got me was like right out in the courtyard, like outside the museum before you even go inside, there is like a, I don't know, like an old Soviet era MiG fighter jet. And that, of course, if you know anything about this channel, you've seen some of the other videos, I'm down with that kind of stuff. We've been to a bunch of like aviation museums and things like that. So when I saw that, I was like, all right, this is a place we're definitely gonna go. Now, I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to film inside. I think we may only be able to take pictures, but if we do, I'll take a lot of pictures and we'll do a voiceover. So we're right here at the corner where I think it is. Let's see. Yeah, this is it. The building right here across the street behind the Moldsil kiosk. Yes, this is definitely it. There's like artillery cannons and tanks and surface to air missiles and fighter jets and stuff. All right, this is it. Here we go, let's check it out. All right, so we made it inside and it is actually okay for us to film in here. Costs 10 lei to enter and an extra 10 lei if you want to film and take photos. Very good price, 20 lei total. They are starting off the military history very early here with Stone Age weapons, bows, bone weapons, stone axes, arrowheads and stone axe heads and clubs. They have some archaeological sites. These are places that I wish I would have been able to visit while we're here in Moldova. We're only here in Chisinau though, not leaving the capital. Maybe at some point we'll be able to come back to Moldova and visit some of these other places. Maybe we'll get better weather when we come back too. The weather has not been great here while we've been here in Moldova. It's been kind of unlucky. It's been cold and raining almost the entire time that we've been here. Pretty unlucky. I was told by our Airbnb host that this is not actually normal for October when we're here in Chisinau. It's usually a little warmer and less rain, but you win some, you lose some. Here we go. Some of these Iron Age spears. Yep, iron 13th to 14th century. Here we have a map. Let's see. Kingdom of Romania era. These, I imagine, are famous Romanian kings from that era, from the Kingdom of Romania era. Now, of course, Moldova was part of Romania during that era. This area was known as Bessarabia, or Bessarabia. And there was actually a part of Romania, still is a part of Romania called Moldavia. It's a little confusing sometimes, especially because sometimes you hear like people and culture and language here referred to as Moldovan, sometimes as Moldavian. But this territory was basically Bessarabia. It's a little bit confusing. It got me a little confused when I was first learning about all of this, this whole region, actually when we were in Romania a couple months ago. Ooh, look at this nasty thing. Big spiky stick attached by a chain to big stick, other big stick. Some terrifying looking hand axes here. Ooh. I gotta say, man, imagine someone running towards you with one of those things, screaming in a language that you don't understand. Welcome to warfare in the Middle Ages. Here we have a large family tree, I think. Is this like the Romanian kingdom family tree? Wow. If it is, it's very large. But yeah, no, actually, this looks like that's what this is. Wild. Very cool. All right, let's go on and see the next room. So at this point, I actually was told by one of the staff members, I think, that I wasn't allowed to film using the camera. I wasn't sure exactly, but I decided I'd just take pictures from here on instead. And at this point, we move into like the Russo-Turkish War era, where the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire were fighting over this area here in Romania and Moldova, which at the time was Bessarabia. There's this cool map of like a huge battle plan. Also, this giant banner on the wall. There's a lot of this stuff in here. Big flags from different eras, like military flags and banners. These pictures here of one of the battles, at the time, you can see that like the uniforms that they were wearing. This is in the like 1800s, middle to I think late 1800s. Some of the weaponry from the era, including like old swords, old pistols. This like a sketch or a drawing of, I guess, some damage from one of the battles. I think this is in Bucharest in the early 1800s. And here they had a case with like some old swords, but they had these photos here of different Russian generals. And there were a number of Russian generals here, and they stayed here in power until the end of the 19th century, the 1800s, on into the era of World War I. And that's where this is, this newspaper article from 1914, the era of World War I. You can see here some like military recruitment posters. Also here a battle map of like it looks like World War I era battle from this area. Some old pistols here, an old revolver. These are all just like old, falling apart, broken pistols. Idea what this was. I couldn't really read the tag on it to say what it was, but it's cool as hell. And they had some more old like revolvers and old World War I. And here the overall Romanian front in 1917, the Romanian front from World War I. You can see Bessarabia on the right-hand side. This flag, I have no idea what this was. I couldn't really read the tag on it to say what it was, but it's cool as hell. And they had some more old like revolvers and old World War I era weapons here, including this crazy thing. This is like a rifle body. It's like It's like a rifle body that I guess from maybe like a old Mosin Nagant Russian rifle, but it's got a handmade handle and a short handmade barrel attached to it. It's basically like a handmade gun that I'm pretty sure you would be able to like hide in your coat. This is something that like a revolutionary or an underground like combatant, paramilitary combatant would be using. And they had this cool painting on the wall that sort of made it look like you were standing on a street in Moldova or Bessarabia during the World War I era with soldiers and this like bulletin board thing with different like newspaper articles and bulletins and flyers stuck to it. It's a pretty cool like touch for the museum, give it some sort of environment. And when we come around the corner here, we're actually in the World War II era with this barbed wire up on the wall. Behind the barbed wire was this like a map of the World War II front. And here, in this case, they had weapons and uniforms, both German weapons and uniforms and Soviet weapons and uniforms. And this is important because the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, in which Germany and the Soviet Union basically divided up all of Europe when they were still allies at the beginning of World War II, dividing up Europe, and this part of what was Romania, this Bessarabia part, which is now Moldova, went to the Soviets, and the rest of Romania went to the Germans, which is why Moldova, after World War II, during the Cold War, became a Soviet republic, and Romania did not. But it's interesting to see all the weapons that they have here. Here they have, like I said, both German and Soviet weapons, rifles, and submachine guns. And they have a very extensive collection, not just of old weapons, but like these old, just like old equipment, old shells, mortar shells, old bullet casings and stuff that look like they were just dug out of the ground, which I'm sure, in this part of Europe where World War II was fought, there's tons of like stuff that you can just dig out of the ground like this, but also more well-preserved pieces like this German submachine gun, this gigantic mortar that was sitting right here, and this thing is nuts. This is a anti-material rifle. It's basically a gigantic rifle with a huge caliber bullet that you would use to like shoot holes in tanks. Pretty intense. Here they have German uniform and some more German equipment, bayonets, some German submachine guns, and like a German anti-tank weapons, but also a Soviet uniform here. And in the same case, some Soviet equipment down here, like old shells, binoculars, things like that. They had these really cool old Soviet belt buckles with like the star and the hammer and sickle on them. And also here are some like old postcards, Soviet postcards. You can see written in Cyrillic. Just a lot of very, very cool stuff here, like old history nerd stuff. If you're into military history, they've got a lot of cool stuff here in this museum. And from the World War II era, also some photos of like the damage that was done. And of course, there was a lot of damage done during World War II in this part of the world. And from there, we actually move on to a few decades later. This is the Soviet war in Afghanistan era. So like starting in 1979 to 1989, the 10-year Soviet war in Afghanistan. And in this case, you can see they have it the same way, set up Soviet stuff on one side and Afghan Mujahideen stuff on the other side. So they have like this AK variant. I think this is like an AK-74. I'm not sure exactly. But they had that along with like some anti-tank weapons here. These are models of like Soviet BMPs, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers. They had this. This is a Makarov, I think, pistol. This is a Soviet pistol that like an officer would carry. And they have this uniform, like an officer's uniform with some medals on it. But of course, on the other side, they had like Mujahideen, like garb, what a Mujahideen fighter would be wearing. And in addition to that, they had these newspapers of the era, one of them written in English here, but also ones written in Arabic like these here. Over here in the same section, they had sort of a setup of like a mock-up of what maybe like a forward operating or observation post would have looked like for the Soviets, with a a mannequin dressed as a radio operator there. They also had a lot of photographs just from the war here on this wall, with also some medals, and here some rubles. These are like Russian Soviet rubles from that era. It's very cool to see old money. I always like looking to see old money, but right around the corner from that case, they had these like rockets. These are basically like rocket tubes, I think, for missiles. And this one specifically, the one that they have the cross section opened, I'm pretty sure this thing is like a cluster munition rocket, and all those little canisters inside are like cluster bombs, which would literally make this thing like a war crime, basically, because like cluster munitions are war crimes essentially, and they just have it here in the museum, so that's cool. From here, they move on into the next room. The next room is all the fall of the Soviet Union and the independence of Moldova. You can see here the newspaper articles for the independence of Moldova, and also this huge gathering of people in, like, I guess this would be 1991, in Great National Assembly Square, where our first video was filmed, and also the video about the Wine Day Festival. You can see the triumphal arch here and the cathedral behind it. All these people here in the crowd with the Moldovan flags. And this is actually the front of what is now the presidential palace. At the time, it was the Soviet parliament here, and they're pulling the Soviet symbol down, like off of the building. These were like epaulets. This is like the different rank insignia for the Moldovan military. They have them all here, which I thought was pretty cool. But from there, we move into the next room, and this is the room dedicated to the Transnistria War. These are photos of the war, the Transnistria War, which I mentioned. Transnistria, the breakaway republic that still exists today as a separate part of Moldova, controlled by separatists. And this was a pretty tragic war because the scars of it, of course, are still evident today in the country. And you see like a mock-up here of, I guess, soldiers. They would be inside of a building. And also they had a civilian like mannequin here to show that, of course, civilians, are unfortunately involved in wars like this. And right next to this, they had this little shrine. And this was actually quite moving because the screen was like changing every few seconds with a different face, and there was a voice reading out the different names. And this is all the people who died in the Transnistrian War, like a shrine to these people. That was quite moving. They had cases with some weapons from the Transnistrian War, as well as like radio equipment and other types of equipment from the Transnistrian War. And just next to this section, they had a very small case that I thought was really interesting. This is actually the Moldova's participation in the Iraq War in the early 2000s, the Operation Iraqi Freedom, which I didn't even know that Moldova was involved in that, but apparently they did send troops. And you can see like here's some stuff that's in the case from the Iraq War. So very interesting. Now there was an next section about the Chernobyl disaster, which of course I forgot about, in relationship to Moldova, but because Moldova was a Soviet republic, of course, there were Moldovans who were involved in the cleanup of Chernobyl, and you can see all the names of probably the people who died from Moldova as a result, and also some like equipment photographs of like the inside of the reactor, some medals here that I guess were awarded, and then this, which is like a dosimeter, a radiation detector for individuals. Very, very interesting. Something I forgot about, of course. And that brings us to like the Soviet section here, the Molotov Ribbentrop Pact. Like I mentioned, you can see on the map here, the division with the red part being mostly of what is Moldova today, going to the Soviet Union, and the green part of what is mostly Romania today going to the Germans. And after the Soviets took over here in Moldova, there were a number of resistance groups that fought against the Soviets. And here are like different photos and just in memoriam to resistance fighters who died during the, fighting against Soviet occupation here. A lot of the Soviet stuff they have here is like down in the basement of the museum, including this sort of mock-up of an interview room with the NKVD, which is the Soviet secret police with the blue hats. And on the wall of this interview room, the fathers of communism there, Lenin, Marx, and Engels. And of course, here, if they did not like the answers that you gave them in the interview, you might end up on a train car going to one of these gulags and put to work at one of the Soviet work camps, the gulags. Not a very good time. And honestly, down here in the basement, they had a lot of old sort of Soviet stuff, just like regalia, and also busts here of like Lenin and just like lots of old Soviet stuff. They even had like old Soviet era everyday items like telephones and lamps and sewing machines and things like that. Very interesting stuff to see down here in the basement. I almost missed it, honestly, but one of the staff members directed me down here to make sure I saw it, and I'm very glad she did. Overall, the collection here, quite impressive. That was a very cool museum. They actually had a lot of stuff in there. I got kind of mixed messages. Maybe I just wasn't understanding because like my Romanian is not good. My Russian is also not good. And I think I was being told in Russian and Romanian that like maybe we can't film in there. I'm not sure. I could have just misunderstood, but I decided to take pictures instead of filming. But now that we're back out here in the courtyard, I'm going to film out here, and there's a lot of stuff out here as well. All of these like old cannons, artillery pieces from different eras, surface-to-air missiles, and then this is what I had seen a picture of that made me initially want to come here. And this is I think I want to say a MiG-23, MiG-21, something. Let's check. MiG-21, 1959 MiG-21 model supersonic fighter jet with the rocket pods underneath. Man, it's big. It's big up close. Bigger than I thought it was going to be up close. They also have some tanks over here, including like a T-30. I think that's a T-34 tank. And here, some older anti-aircraft weapons, and an old MiG. This is like early jet era. I've seen one of these before in one of the previous museums that we went to. I think actually it was in the Argentine Air and Space Museum in like outside of Buenos Aires. 37 millimeter anti-air cannon. Here's one of the old Katyushka rockets. Load up rockets on there and launch those things. Yeah, here's some of the old land vehicles. The T-34 tank, old Soviet tank. These are the old like BTRs, BMPs. Man, like these things are old, but if you go next door, these things are still out there, man, in the Russo-Ukrainian war right now. They're using these things, BTRs, BMPs. The BMP right here. Infantry fighting vehicle. These things are actually designed to be amphibious. So theoretically, I think you could go across like a river or something in this. I think it's been tried in the Russo-Ukrainian War. I think the Russians have tried to do it. I don't think it's worked out too well, judging by the news that I've seen. I've been following the conflict pretty closely. Well, I think that'll just about do it for our visit here to the Muzeul Militar, or Muzeul Militar, the military museum. One last look at the MiG-21 right here, the big surface-to-air missile. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So, I like this museum. This was good. They had a lot more inside than I thought they were going to have, to be honest. And I actually almost missed out on all the Soviet stuff in the basement. I was heading out the door, and the woman was like, no, down. So, very cool. Very big collection, much bigger than I thought it was going to be. Lots of stuff arranged very succinctly in, like, you know, from all the way back in like the Stone Age, all the way up through the 2 world wars, through the war in Afghanistan, the Transnistrian conflict, and all the way up through like modern day. Very cool. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's more coming from here in Chisinau in Moldova. Stay tuned for that, and we'll see you in the next one.